Identity is a set of qualities, belief, personality traits, appearance, and/or expressions that characterize a person or a group. Identity emerges during childhood as children start to comprehend their self-concept, and it remains a constant aspect throughout different stages of their lives. This is the definition of what identity is from Wikipedia. Hello and welcome back to Source OK. This is a podcast created to understand, learn, and demystify life in Africa and Africans' life. Thank you so much for being here, and if this is your first time joining, welcome. Please do check out all the other episodes as well. I really do put my effort and time in, and I really do think you will enjoy it. Last week's episode, we spoke with Wichera Thande and Wichera Murioki on understanding how language, specifically the terms and the label developing, third world country versus first world undeveloped, can affect the African identity until this very day. So what I wanted to really delve into after that episode was to understand if anybody else agrees with the statement and their point of view, and if so, or if they don't, how would they describe their African identity, what it means to them to be African. And so I asked my network, and I got these answers back. So join me today as we delve into the different responses, and we trying to rope some answers together, see some comparisons, similarities, differences, etc. And as we are listening to their answers, I will also be reading through an article which delves into the African identity.
To be African to me is to be the blueprint of humanity. This fills me with great pride, especially in this day and age where we're seeing Africa awaken and start to rise from the ashes like a phoenix. It's such a historic time to be an African. I'm specifically from the east of Africa. I'm half Ugandan and half Rwandan. I was born in Uganda and spent my formative years there. This helped shape my identity massively. Especially proud of how far Rwanda has come from the Tutsi genocide, which my dad's family fled from into Uganda. And I have to admit, when I came to the UK, when I was younger, being an African was not trendy. So I sort of try to hide that part of me. However, as I got older and learned more about Africa's history, its cultures, its people, and what it meant to be from the motherland, my sense of identity and attachment to the continent deepened. And now I stand empowered in my African identity. There are other factors that have helped shape my identity, having been in the care system here in the UK and grown up in a Jamaican household. So that is I've sort of got like a mixture, the best of both worlds, Caribbean and African. But I am ever so proud to be an African.
The identity of a people entails a self-consciousness of their ontological nature, ranging from the personal, interpersonal, and communal individuation, aided crucially by the differing factors between them and other people. I think this is what Ike Odimegu means when he presents a twofold approach to the definition of African identity to include the human and cultural identity.
I am Algerian, thus I'm African. And for me, being African is more than just a geographical identity. Being African means being part of a continent that is filled with amazing people and traditions. I would say that I'm super proud to be part of a continent that has birthed extraordinary minds and extremely ambitious and hardworking people. If you ask me about my homeland, Algeria, the first things that come to mind are our history, diverse culture, nature, and people's warm hospitality.
For him, identity exists at the material level, but it further requires the service of consciousness for its definition. This consciousness is characterized by substantiality and rationality, growth and development, communality and interpersonal influence, and evaluation.
In regards to what it means to be African, so where I am half Ghanaian, half Nigerian, um, I'm just proud of both countries. I'm proud to be African and proud to kind of represent the diaspora outside. One thing I will say is when I was younger, it wasn't always the case due to, Africans kind of culture in school not being really hip, shall we say, compared to now, certainly. But it's definitely something I'm proud of. I think in terms of factors that are important to me, just being able to represent my culture, even for example with my name, it's not like a typical British name, but I know the significance behind it and the meaning behind it. So, I always proudly represent it.
At the individual level, the African person is that human being whose roots can be traced to the present geographical location of the African continent. His physical, psychological, rational, and spiritual consciousness must conform to the being of an African. As whiteness is the universal color of formation for the rest of humanity, blackness is the unique color identification of the African.
So basically, identity for me is very complicated. Like I've said, I was born in England to an English mother and a Jamaican father, but I grew up from birth in Wales. So I could identify as English, where I was born and where my mum's side are from, or Jamaican, where my dad and his family are from and where my skin colour ties me to, or I could identify as Welsh, which is mostly what I have felt, having lived there for all my formative years. That said, growing up in Wales, I guess, well, I felt Welsh, despite being English on paper. I mean, I was there most of my life. We were never accepted as Welsh due to our skin colour. I say our, it's me and my sister. Yeah, so being mixed race, we had brown skin, and we grew up in the 70s and 80s in Wales. So while we might have felt Welsh, we were definitely not accepted. On top of that, being from Wales, we kind of shunned everything English. So I would never, like, even to this day, I don't describe myself ever as English, despite being English on paper. I'll always say British. Then, as a child, for shame, I shunned any connection to my Jamaican heritage. Bearing in mind, my parents weren't together, so my dad's been a massive part of my life, but they weren't together. We were in Wales. I shunned any connection just for self preservation. But in the last, I guess, 10 to 15 years, I've really craved a connection. And you try and claw it back, but it's tricky. I don't have any family in Jamaica. I've got no ties. And of course, when we visited Jamaica, we were definitely British and very much treated as British. And while we kind of went expecting this, I definitely felt a connection with the country, but we weren't like welcomed as Jamaicans. We were welcomed, of course, it's an amazing place, amazing people, but we were British. So basically, I have been searching for my identity my entire life. And as I'm doing this process for you, I've kind of thought, actually, that's kind of become my identity, like lost slash searching. which sounds sad, but it's not. I think it's kind of like, it feels like a quest. And on that quest, in the past sort of decade or so, I feel like I've connected much more with my ancestral African roots than I have with my Jamaican in a way, partly through my friendships, and also I've been visited a few countries in Africa now. And yeah, so I feel a really strong tie. But that said, when I go, I'm light skinned, so I don't fit in. And Cuba is actually the only country I've been to where visually I completely fit in. People thought I was Cuban. And so by that, I guess that to me, identity is informed at least by that feeling of belonging, which is something I've never really experienced apart from Cuba. But even then, I don't speak Spanish, I haven't got a Cuban accent. So as soon as I open my mouth, obviously that the kind of visual belonging disappears. So in summary, I think being half Jamaican with African ancestry means absolutely everything to me. I think you asked, what's it mean? Like, it means everything to me. And I don't have a choice because it's part of you. And when you have brown skin in a white skinned country, it's reflected back to you every minute of every day. I'm very proud of the history and my skin colour. I'm very proud of the history and of kind of ancestors surviving generations of struggle. I'm really proud of that, and it's like makes up the whole of my identity. There's not much space for anything else. But that said, it is complicated, and this sense of belonging for me is a quest that continues.
Ford Henry once said, "You can have one color as long as it's black." Similarly, native inhabitants of Africa say you can be an African in any color as long as you are black. There has been a sudden demand for an African to be in a variety of colors during the days of slavery. When an African was a commodity, there was never a demand for him in any color but black. There is now an attempt in the 21st century to redefine the color scheme of an African. Now whites wants to be classified as Africans too.
I don't know if I see myself as an African person or Nigerian person, to say the least. I mean, I see myself as a black person, black Muslim Italian person, but I don't know if I see myself as a um African person. I never been in Africa or Nigerian, to talk less of Nigeria. Um, I mean, and then people can tell as well from my accent that I like yeah, I never really been in Africa or in Nigeria, and they don't even guess that I'm Nigerian most of the time. They always give me some other country. So I don't know, and it does impact my identity as well, because sometimes I don't know in which community I kind of like fit in. Sometimes I find it a bit difficult. Like, I don't know whether sometimes I'm more like Muslim or more like um maybe white a little bit or black. I don't know. For me, it's a bit challenging one actually. But like, I don't know, I just and a lot of my friends they're kind of like a little bit from other countries as well. Like, I don't really have like practically like black. Like, I do have black friends from Africa. Yes, yes, I do, but maybe not as much as maybe.
But the color identification of the African became problematic with the multicolored indigenous people found in various nations of Africa, thus generating the geographical or coloration debate of African identity. The simple submission of the account posits that the term African, in quote, could mean various different things. It could refer to people of a particular skin color and ethnic origin. It could refer to those whose political thinking was continent wide rather than confined to one country. And it could mean those who, no matter what their color, identify themselves as African. If the color argument cannot be substantially sustained, what then are the essential features of the African?
My name is Priscilla. I'm from Ghana and work as a product marketing manager. For me, being African means being born and raised in Ghana to Ghanaian parents. It means growing up with big dreams and visions to save the world, to make the world a better place, starting with my country. Having lived in the West for over a decade, being African has also come to mean being confident, beautiful, and intelligent. Being African to me has been a journey of recognizing that my dark skin shines, that my big afro is gorgeous, and that my curls have a wonderful life of their own. It means knowing my uniqueness and placing value in it. It means reclaiming the values of community, respect, compassion, and kindness that I grew up with. It also means reconnecting with spirit in a world where one is easily criticized for believing there's more to the world than themselves. Being an African living in the West has meant knowing my worth and the value I bring in a world where others want to see me as less than. It means knowing I belong and that I can be me without permission in a world that tries to make me jump through hoops for the basics.
The Kenyan philosopher Joseph M. Yasani amply articulates one of the most distinctive features of African philosophy is the element of sociality, which in many cases has given rise to such concepts as African personality, African identity, African solidarity, and many other virtues that attest to the humanistic character of a man and his fellow man. Virtues like patience, optimism, mutual sympathy, and empathy are eminently characteristic of the African way of life and certainly point to a peculiar mode of existence that extends the realm of the individual potentialities to embrace the life of others and their concerns.
I come from Nigeria. I'm second generation immigrant. I was born here in North London, Haringey. I went back when I was 7 and I came back when I was 25. So I did all my schooling there. I did part of my primary school here on Green Lanes. You know what? I actually don't have issues with my identity because I went home early and I stayed there for a long time. My parents gave all of us Igbo names from the Igbo tribe of Nigeria, the eastern part. We don't have English names. I was born during the Biafran War, 1967 to be exact. And when I asked my parents, they said during that time, a lot of Igbos were not giving their children English names because of what was going on at home. You know, there was a war, they were killing our people, and they wanted to preserve, the Igbo, should I say race, the Igbo tribe, wherever we were. Um, and yeah, so I never had issues with identity. I knew from the start I was African, Nigerian to be exact, West African. When we got home, my parents had a no English speaking policy in the house. We did not speak English. You had to learn how to speak Igbo, which is my language. And when I went to school, I mixed with the Yoruba children, the children from the West. And so I can speak two Nigerian languages very fluently, Igbo and Yoruba. And that was it. I never, none of us had issues with identity, to be fair. Probably my big sister, and that was because, I don't know, she was the first, and how was it? Yeah, she wanted to do things differently. But to be fair, eventually she went to America when she was very young. Immediately after secondary school back home, she went straight to America. And she actually got married to a Puerto Rican guy, and she's the matriarch of that family. So, they were together for a very long time. She actually became mother to his other children, grandmother to his children's children. So she just, yeah, blended in there, took her Africanness into a Puerto Rican family. I know where I'm from. I don't need to tell if people ask me where am I from, I tell them I'm from Nigeria in West Africa. So born in the UK, originated from Nigeria. And that's where my parents. So I'm not into all this. I was born here business. No, yeah, I was born here, but I know where I'm from. So that's it. And so I demonstrated that with the clothes I wear. Of course, I wear Ankara, African print. I wear dreadlocks. I've been wearing that for a very, very long time. I cook the food very well, and sometimes I can remember there was a time I was living in a predominantly white area, and I used to have church fellowships, and I used to cook African food for them. There was nothing like salad and all that. It was white rice and stew. That's what I could cook, and they loved it. They just ate. Yeah, so I go home regularly. So I know my roots. I go home regularly. I go home every other year, every year. Every other year, every year. Okay, during the pandemic, we didn't go for a while. Excuse me, but immediately after the pandemic, that was it. Yeah, I stay in Lagos, the capital. I don't tend to go to the east because of security. Normally, we go in the Christmas time when lots of people are there. I walked into predominantly white spaces, especially at work, and I just get on with it. I try to blend. I don't force my Africanness on anybody. I don't force my identity on anybody, but I don't deny it either. My country, Nigeria, is a really beautiful country. We've had issues with security for a bit. It would be nice to travel a bit more in Africa, in Nigeria, but we can't do that as much as we want to because of the security situation. Having said that, it's not that bad. It's really not that bad. So all our children have Nigerian names. The English name is silent. In fact, one of them does not have any English name. So, and we've taken them home quite a few times when they were younger. We don't want them to go to Nigeria that much because of the security. We encourage them to go to. We have Gambian side of my family, so they go there. It's safer. So, and that's it. But in terms of what does it mean to be African means richness, diversity, a huge, beautiful culture, huge, beautiful history. Very rich culture, very rich history. We should be very proud of. I'm a princess by marriage. I always tell my children they are princes and princesses. They shouldn't forget that. And I try to tell them the history of the ruling house that they're from, just so that they know. We say it in our own language, like Omoba, which is a prince, princess, and all that. Yeah, to be African to me is a blessing. I've met Africans from all over the world, mixed race. I mean, if you go to Cairo, there are Africans that are white. You understand, but it's all Africa. So we shouldn't really underestimate. Not every African is black. So again, I love the richness, the diversity. It's just beautiful.
At the genetic level, man is a social animal, but African distinctive social nature remains a remarkable principle of his unique identity. According to the Afrotorial 2012, we were divided by race, tribe, class, gender, and skin color, and the poor African was at the bottom of the heap. We believed the lie that we were not good enough and forgot that we are beautiful, hardworking, kind, and loving people.
Hey, okay, so what it means for me to be an African, it really means a lot. My parents made it very they ingrained it in us from childhood, the importance of maintaining culture and our cultural identity, so that it's not sort of erased because our country was colonized and the colonizers sort of tried their hardest to erase our culture. So that's really been ingrained in us since childhood, to know our language, to know certain cultural practices and traditions. So yeah, that's definitely been ingrained, and it's made me feel more proud to be from where I am. I also try to express myself in many different ways to other people to show them that I am African and also Algerian, by wearing our cultural jewelries, So outside of running, I do wear a lot of like rings and that show my ethnic group, and it starts up a conversation with other people when they see it, and they're like, oh, your rings are really nice, where is it from? So yeah, like I do outwardly like to show that I am African.
What has come to be known as African predicament is the African struggle for self-definition and reformation in the face of Western coercion apparatus. The blows of the slave trade, colonization, and apartheid are further sustained by the force of imperialism and, most recently, globalization. African nationalist movement, Pan-Africanism, and various other concrete struggles towards the independence of African nation all point to the reality of a people's quest for social political emancipation. The problem tends to bite harder as African assimilation and obvious preference of Western ideas and values move up the scale in geometric progression.
Hello, I am Mariam from Zanzibar, Tanzania. I am a Muslim as well as an proudly African, and I will always be a proudly African. For me, being African is just a precious gift that I ever received on my life. Being an African is all about having humanity beyond all the measures of the world. That's why I'm proudly saying that being an Africa for me doesn't only meaning the history of my ancestors, what happening, but becoming a person with a faith, helping, loving, care of about others, no matter the race, no matter the religion, no matter the economic status that we have in the society.
As Africa continues to struggle within the pool of developmental advancement and global self-assertion, the problem of African identity will continue to engage African scholars. Every gap to be filled will always upsurge and will be adequately attended to. The nature-culture approach remains a reaffirmation of African ontological status and maintains that the product of African nature is the African culture, which is an institutional expression of African identity.
What does it mean to be African? This is a deep question. I was born in Italy to immigrant parents, my father a Nigerian and my mother Zimbabwean. Growing up as a young black girl in Italy during the late 90s to early 2000s wasn't easy. I often felt disconnected from my roots. In a country where I was constantly reminded that I was different, that my hair was weird, that my name was too hard to pronounce, I often shrank my identity and tried to minimize myself. But over time, I realized that I need to stand firm in who I was. I spent many years letting people mispronounce my name and not correcting them. But then I began to understand where my name comes from, what it means. And I began taking pride in teaching people how to say it properly. Though it's small, but I believe that it's a very powerful way that I asserted my identity. And this began a journey into me cultivating my African identity for myself. I began to read books. I began to ask family members about my lineage, about what it really means to be African through the eyes of my loved ones, rather than through the media, or rather than those who think they're superior telling me what an African is. So for me now, being African is about being resilient, about being powerful. It's about being your brother's and your sister's keeper. And it's about deeply appreciating those who came before me. So now I proudly stand firm in my African identity, as I know that there is so much power that came before me and power that will come after me.
Okay, it's me talking now. The article's done. I just wanted to say that I am not here to validate nor dispute someone's Africanness, quote unquote, if you can even call it that. As you've heard, some people have strong ties to it, and it forms for them an anchor, but for other, it's merely fate. It's just a card that was dealt with to them at birth. The purpose of this episode is to understand the Africanness or Caribbeanness, blackness, whatever the name might be that you identify yourself with. It comes in many forms and is manifested in many folds, but are all equally valid and must be acknowledged to move forward. I would like to say a very big thank you to all of the voices that you heard today in this episode. Without you, there wouldn't have been an episode today. Honestly, I just reached out and put the message out on my groups network, and people responded. It definitely isn't an easy question to talk about, especially to talk about so vulnerably, and also for it to be put on a podcast. So thank you very much. Thank you for listening. This episode was brought to you by myself, Zainab. Suraseke is an independent production, and I do really appreciate if you guys support, share, like, subscribe, leave a comment on Spotify. You can do that. Let me know what being African means to you, or being from the Caribbean. Let me know what that means to you. Please do share.